Yeah.
How you doing? Here we go. Nice to see you.
You guys just
Oh, I know.
I think it might be.
Well, we're talking basketball. We're talking basketball today, so that's a good thing. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We have the draft of the proposal that's been negotiated over the past several weeks. The three of us have represented the Assembly, so I'm going to let Chairman Nygren and Majority Leader Steineke speak first, and we'll be happy to answer questions at the end.
Well, I think just going back in history over the last few months where we've come from, Governor released a plan. He called it the Pay Their Own Way plan. It was $220 million of bonding to support a new facility in Milwaukee for the Bucks. He made a good case about how the loss of the team would affect state revenues, not only now, but how the growth of with the NBA contracts would look in the future. But even at that point in time, I think a lot of our members had concern about the level of bonding, level of commitment from the state. So during the last few months, you kind of heard people kind of staking out their ground of where everybody's at. And that kind of led to the proposal as you see it today, which is significantly less state contribution. Actually, I think if you would have asked any of us at the beginning, going from a $220 million state contribution to a $55 million state contribution, going from a $480 million complete all-in with interest to an $80 million number, I think none of us would have probably agreed that would have happened. But that's where we're at. I know there's some that want to look at this as a totality of the county and the city. And I understand that as taxpayers of the state of Wisconsin, but the way we look at this is we look at this as representatives, state representatives, and looking at the overall state perspective. I think we're in a much better position today than we were, and I think we're also in a position where we could go to the assembly floor, we could join finance, and we could pass the proposal as is to keep the Bucks in our state. We've already made the case for the financial support, the financial improvement they bring to our not only our largest city but the state as a whole. Pretty much all the revenues, the impact is at the state level, so I think it's important for us as state representatives to step up and to lead the way and provide a pathway for them to remain in Milwaukee, in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, the direction we had from caucus going into these negotiations was to limit as much as we could the state's liability in this case, and have the locals pick up a lion's share of the portion of the cost going forward. We accomplished, I think, all of our goals, and that really limited the state's obligation to much less than what the state will gain over time as the arena is built and the Bucks stay. So I think overall for the state taxpayers, the negotiations were a success, and we're looking forward to working with the Senate to get this done.
Right. If you look at the plan, you will see we actually have a Fiscal Bureau memo which details many of the proposals. But like any complicated idea, it took a while for everybody to be able to look at the exact language, all the players involved, the city, the county, the state, the team, the arena, all of the different entities have had an opportunity to hopefully look at it and provide input. Now the most important input is going to happen, period, and that's making sure that our colleagues have the opportunity to look at the specifics of the bill, ask questions, that the public has every opportunity to read the bill, look at it. It's actually going to be posted on the Fiscal Bureau's website online so that anybody will be able to look at that link, read it themselves, answer questions, or perhaps provide new ideas. Because while this is definitely, I think, a good faith effort of the negotiating process, there are good ideas that could be left on the table, and we're always willing to look at those to see if there's a deal that's possible, that's better for taxpayers, that provides different opportunities to get to the same end. But I think the three of us and our entire caucus share the same goal, and that's to have the least expensive option for the state while providing the best possible venue, not just for the Bucks, but for Marquette and for people who live in southeastern Wisconsin to have what's really a first-class entertainment attraction in a first-class city. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do you believe you've got the votes, as Representative Nygren said, to pass this as proposed here?
I do believe so. We have caucused on this, half a dozen times, different aspects of it. We caucused even again last week. Once again, I have not done a vote count. I just want to be honest about that because we didn't really ask people where they were until they had an opportunity to read the bill draft and read the Fiscal Bureau memo. We're We're intending to caucus again on Wednesday. The Senate is caucusing again on Tuesday, so their members will also have an opportunity to look at it prior to going to caucus to figure out the strategy. But either way, I think that just on the very basic economics, which is where our caucus has focused a lot of our effort on, $6.5 million in just income tax revenue, $4 million in expenditures with a 20-year cap. So I think most of our caucus is focused just on that aspect, if nothing else, to say we would lose money if they leave. If they stay, we get an amenity and we get more revenue.
Yeah, I think it's important that the credit for our position in negotiations really, it's our caucus as a whole, but our outstate representatives were really insistent that we do everything we could to drive down the state's liability in this, because they see this as a win for the state, but they also recognize that the locals who are going to benefit greatly from this had to be a bigger part of the solution.
So with the overall price tag being $500 million, what is proposed as the state's piece of that in this, and is that $500 goal reachable with all the parties involved?
Sure. The state's number is $55 million. That's our contribution. Of course, you have the owners, Senator Cole, all the taxing entities who would put in their portion. So really the state has a significant role, but one that is about equal to the city and the county. And that's the goal that we had.
So are we still able to reach that $500 million?
Yeah, we're still looking at approximately the same number with the Wisconsin Center District in the proposal that has been hammered out.
Why does this place do requirements on the sale of motor vehicles? So it looks like everybody, not just in Milwaukee?
My understanding is that has to do with the debt collection. So that actually changes the law for that aspect of it.
So is finance going to add this to the budget, then?
We could, I can think that comes down to where the Senate might be at. I mean, we've seen press releases from a number of senators that say they want it out of the budget. I mean, I think the Assembly is as I said earlier, I think we're in a good spot either way. But we'll wait to see what our friends in the Senate choose to do.
Is the Senate going to get the budget first? Has that been resolved?
That has not been decided.
Do you have a preference? Peter, out of the budget, do you have a preference?
I don't know that I have a preference. No, I do not.
I mean, I will say that I have had very preliminary discussions with Peter Barca. Assuming when I read all the senators' press release saying that they wanted it out, I'm trying to prep, and I think all of us are, for an option either way. Peter was very open to talking about it, but he said the same thing that, frankly, our members did. They want to read the deal, they want to be able to look at the legislation, and then ask questions, which is the right of every single legislator.
So what is your deadline for deciding whether you go it alone? You said it was always an option for having Assembly meet, pass it yourself on the floor. When is your drop dead for that?
We need to have some kind of an answer, I'm hoping, by the end of the week. The budget was, from the Senate. I mean, the budget was really supposed to pass, hopefully by tomorrow, and we're certainly not going to meet that deadline. So I know you're a miracle worker,
I'm
but not
looking
in
to
that
see
case.
if I got time.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, we really need to have some kind of progress. So that's why we've scheduled the caucus for ourselves on Wednesday. The Senate goes tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to have a better idea where folks are.
You say the end of the week, but Friday's a national holiday. Are you including that or not?
Well,
He might
luckily
be in a
we're
different spot than I am. I'm not sure. So
I feel like we're working on this 24/7. So we are trying to find an answer this week.
Are you saying you would meet to do something by then, or if you don't get an answer, you do something on Monday?
That's all. Those discussions are all up in the air. I mean, my goal is to have the same process we have utilized in the past, which is to have the Joint Finance Committee. Obviously, I served as chair. I love the process. I think it works really well. But it also requires us to get to an answer. And we're literally at 30 days since finance has last met. So I feel good that we're making progress. I really do. I'm not just saying that. I honestly believe that we can find an answer by the end of the week. But we also have to have some sort of deadline that we're not just sitting here staring at each other for months on end.
So, Ron, what do you put out next? Have you done launch now, but I mean, seriously, like, will it be a transportation package tomorrow, and you do like daily news conferences and say, we're ready, where are you guys in the Senate, and are you afraid that might backfire?
Boy, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
That's the implication I got from this morning, so what am I going to hear about tomorrow morning, I guess?
Well, I mean, we're trying to work on all of these things, but, the Assembly has consistently said from the beginning, we want this stuff to be out in the public. We have tried to give negotiating room to have us both sit down and come to conclusions on some stuff we have. There are some bigger sticking points that we haven't. I think we're getting closer and closer on transportation, so I feel pretty good about that maybe we'll be able to have some kind of an announcement sometime this week that maybe finance could go in. I'm really an optimist. So hopefully after the Senate has their caucus tomorrow, they'll have a better idea of what their position is to match where we are, to match where our...
Isn't this really kind of a tacit acknowledgement, putting this stuff out there that you can't get an agreement right now with the Senate, and so this is this is what you're left with.
No, because on the Bucks arena, I mean, as an example, which we're talking about right now, Senator Fitzgerald, all of us have been in the room negotiating the exact same thing. Senator Fitzgerald's office really took the lead on drafting the bill along with our office. So we wanted to get it out to the public. This is where we're getting to the point where we need to have answers as we move forward. I want our caucus to be able to read the proposal. I'm sure, I mean, Senator Fitzgerald agreed. He wanted to have it out too. So he wants to have his caucus be able to read it. And I want to make sure the Democrats, where if we do take it out of the budget, we're probably going to need some help in passing it to get Democratic votes. That means that they should have an opportunity to review it and ask questions too. That's what we're doing.
What reaction do you have to Assembly Democrats this afternoon? I know this is something off topic, calling for a change to the state constitution on one man, one woman language.
Well, that's something we haven't talked about. I certainly think that at a point like that, the U.S. Supreme Court has already made a definition. We already know that same-sex marriage is legal in Wisconsin because of what the U.S. Supreme Court did. So I understand where some people are continuing to try to make a political point out of it. But the Supreme Court has already decided. Governor Walker said we're going to live with that ruling. So it seems like it's a lot more political than
Thanks, everyone. Any questions you have with the bill language, please feel free to call me if you have any additional questions.
And it's on the legislative website.
And it's on the legislative website.
Awesome.
So take a surcharge then?
There were no tweaks.
We gotta see.
It was rolled out last time. It was basically the plan was rolled out.
But there's a lot more detail, which is why we wanted to make sure if people have questions, it's even like the things about debt collection. I mean, all of that is part of the proposal. And we just want to have as transparent a process as we can, so nothing's trying to be jammed, nothing's trying to be rushed. Everybody has an opportunity to read it way before the vote happens.
Is there a plan B? Do you move it as a separate bill if the Senate won't go along to add it to the budget?
Steve, we are going to get this done. I'm an optimist.
So you're absolutely not going to move it as a separate bill?
Not
You're not going to have a
necessarily,
separate
but
bill?
we're going to see where the Senate is. I mean, like John said, we feel very good that we have, an opportunity to pass the bill. The Senate's got a caucus tomorrow. We have the caucus on Wednesday, but our members need to read the bill.
So anything
So it's
on
Right.
prevailing wage or preventing them from having local hiring requirements or anything like the exemption from prevailing wage?
Well, you got to read it, don't you?
Yeah, well, something that you could just tell me which page.
Yeah, read it.
Which section?